every Wednesday. 6 starts at 6, unless he's out of town. He'll be back next Wednesday, as far as I know. And yeah, you're welcome to come. We also are on YouTube. If you'd like the info for the YouTube channel, I can share it with you after the session if you're not tuned into that yet. We have a WhatsApp group. Not always super active in the WhatsApp group, but from time to time, folks ask questions or we send out information like if the session is going to be canceled or anything like that, or if there's special stuff going on. So yeah, you're also welcome. Anyone's welcome to join the WhatsApp group as well. So yeah, let's come to our seat and take a few nice soft breaths. Just settle in here. Okay. So as we usually do, we'll go over like the kind of the three general or main parts to how we typically meditate here. It's based off of a type of Tibetan Buddhist meditation. We'll see where the the session goes. So first, it's helpful to have more or less a straight spine. It's said that helps with just like the flow of energy in the body. And bring rise to a sense of like joy that we all made it here. We get to practice together. There could be lots of different scenarios where we weren't able to come tonight, whether it's working or having to take care of someone or being sick, not having the means to get here, although we have YouTube as well. And also give rise to the thought that we're practicing tonight not just for ourselves, but for all beings. And that type of selflessness can be helpful for lots of different reasons. In Buddhism, in certain types of Buddhism, there's certain paths that where a person basically commits to helping relieve the suffering of other beings. There's a belief in like reincarnation, rebirth, and they take a vow that they're going to keep on coming back until they free all beings. And it can help to have this selfless perspective, because then it's not all about like me. So even just training in this way and having this intention at the beginning of a session can help us kind of turn away from being as self-centered and train being selfless. And then again, the spine is more or less straight, head over the spine. It's okay if you need to adjust every once in a while, but in general, it's helpful to be as still as possible, but not to the point where there's a lot of agitation, like if you have an itch or if you have to stretch your leg, even if you have to get up and walk around, go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, it's okay. But when we're practicing, we try to work towards being still, and the saying is body like a mountain. Good job. Looks like a bunch of mountains in here. Body like a mountain. And then the next part is speech, or in this case, speech refers to breath. And in this type of meditation, we don't really control it. We just let it do what it's naturally going to do. And gradually, typically what happens is the breath will kind of get softer, maybe a little slower. We might eventually even like hold the breath after an exhalation. But the instruction here is to just breathe how the body's naturally wanting to breathe without putting effort into it. And again, here we refer to the breath as speech, and the saying is speech like an ocean with no waves. So body like a mountain, speech like the ocean with no waves. And the third part is mind open like the sky. And here we typically train in like kind of little snippets of time, whether that's like even as short as 30 seconds or a minute or two, or we have this intention for our mind to be open like the sky. And here it's okay if thoughts come, but you can kind of think of them as like maybe a cloud going by in the sky. It comes and goes. The sky is still vast and open, whether there's a cloud or not, or a bird flying by. And another common tip for this type of meditation is if you're feeling kind of like tired, been a long day, or maybe I didn't eat enough, you can raise your gaze up higher towards the ceiling, and that can sometimes have an effect of kind of like lifting the energy. And also, it can be helpful to kind of make sure we're not slouching, like we have kind of a little bit of a stronger pose in your body. And then on the other end, if you're feeling like you're really having a hard time settling down, you're really amped up for whatever reason, you can bring the gaze lower towards the floor, and that will kind of settle the energy down. And you can also focus on trying to relax the body a little bit more, like rolling the shoulders back and settling them down. Not exactly like slouching or getting too lazy with your posture, but just being a little more comfortable. Try to encourage calmness. Okay, and we can do an exercise called clearing the stale breath. And I'll demonstrate it once and kind of talk through it, and then we'll all do it together. So basically, you make fists and you put your thumb at the base of your ring finger on each side, and then you exhale. You bring the right arm out and point with the pointed finger, and then you close off the right nostril and breathe in through the left. Put that arm down, raise the left hand, and breathe out through the right, and in through the right, hand down, right arm out again, close off, exhale, then both hands down, inhale through both nostrils, and on the exhale, extend the fingers. Looks like everyone has that pretty well. All right, let's do it again. So it could be helpful to do that like towards the beginning of a session, or kind of break up a session. It can usually help with the mind open like the sky practice. Also, like I've found, even practicing, even doing it, like one time I was out having dinner with some friends, and I just felt a little off, and I just excused myself and went to the bathroom. We were at a Chinese food restaurant. I went in the bathroom, and I went in the stall, and I did it, and I felt like a new person afterwards, just right there in the moment. Not sure what was going on. So it can help with kind of clearing the energy. So let's do it one more time together, and on the out breath, remember, body like a mountain, speech with the ocean, like the ocean with no waves, and mind open like the sky. So on the out breath, let's just practice having a mind open like the sky. Okay. Very good. How's everyone doing?
Yes.
Check. No messages. So yeah, I was thinking about the story of the Buddha that I know I've told before. I don't know if some of y'all may have heard me tell it, but I just love it so much. The rose apple tree story. And something I said before made me think of it, so I'll go into it. But basically, and I guess with a lot of Buddhist teachings and stories, there's different versions of it, so which is interesting to consider too. That different stories can have different lessons depending on how they're told, what context. So basically, the story is, the Buddha. He went through a phase of he was seeking enlightenment, and part of that phase was practicing all these things like barely eating anything for long periods of time, and it said that he was so skinny that at one point like he could touch his spine through his stomach. There's some statues and paintings of the emaciated Buddha out there that show like his ribs, and he looks like a skeleton basically. And he was gradually finding that like that wasn't the way for him anyway, for Buddhism. And at one point, the story is that he sat down under the Bodhi tree and he said, "I'm not going to get up until I attain enlightenment. And he was sitting there at night, and it said that he remembered something from his childhood. So, he came from a wealthy royal family, and he was a little boy, pretty young, and he went with his father and family to a festival, and depending on who's telling the story, it was like a harvest festival, or it was a festival to plant the trees. And at one point, he was by himself, sitting under a rose apple tree. That's why they call it the rose apple tree story. And he just had this moment of like childlike innocence, bliss, but like a very kind of like innocent, pure bliss, not like the bliss of getting high, like with drugs or like sex, yeah. Although that might be okay. Like not like overindulgence, It's okay in Tibetan Buddhism. Not Theravada. And just a very clear mind, like it was that experience or state was just like happening because he was just feeling pleasant, like and it wasn't, because he was eating like many rounds of a certain type of decadent food or and so to go back to him being an adult so many years later, he's under the Bodhi tree and he remembered that experience of his child's experience sitting under the rose apple tree. And it said that like that shifted things for him, and it was really like kind of like the turning point which led to his enlightenment. But leading up to that, he was doing all these practices, like putting a lot of stress on his body, really like grasping for the technique or the teaching or instruction, like all the different practices of the time. And it was just causing like more agitation. And then he had a thought, like, because that experience, like there was a bit of pleasure to it, like that innocent childlike pleasure, like bliss, like, and he thought to himself, like, why am I afraid of pleasure, like that type of pleasure? And then he thought, I'm not. And then he thought, is this the path to enlightenment? And then he thought, yes, it is. And then he entered into like the first meditative state. And then like had quite profound experiences from there on, and later attained enlightenment. So I really like that story because, like, one, a lot of people haven't heard it. Like I told it when I was covering for Joe and our other Tuesday night group, when last time he was out of town, and a bunch of people had never heard it, like people who have been practicing for like 30 years. And two, because when I heard it, I was like, oh, I've had moments like that from my childhood that I think back on, and I've heard other people talk about that as well, and I think it's probably somewhat common, and maybe we don't exactly like put the pieces together and recognize it, but I feel like it's probably not so uncommon for a person to have that experience. That kind of momentary bliss, clear mind. So yeah, I like sharing it because it makes it seem like more kind of accessible.
It's like what I get from that is that the pleasure is actually inside you and accessible a lot of times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so I guess for me it wouldn't be when I was a child because I think I was probably too anxious
Yeah.
or stressed out. But like I can think of other times when just like the simplicity of that pleasure. Trying to remember that it's not outside of you, like in a person or in a food or in a drug. But it's,
totally. Yeah.
Sometimes hard to remember.
Yeah, and yeah, definitely. And like related to that, like it can be accessed or recognized. Like there might be some situations when it would be like pretty hard, but like almost all the time. And they say like just the nature of reality, there's like a bliss like quality to it. Yeah, and it's even possible sometimes to like, I know I've had this experience and heard it from others. Like even if you're sick, like pretty sick, not doing well, um, it's possible to, if you can remember, if I can remember to actually meditate, do different techniques or whatever, to eventually like recognize that, and then part of that too is like with mind training, like oftentimes it's really easy to make things a lot worse than they actually are, like there's like the story of the second arrow, like you get shot with an arrow, but then depending on how the person reacts, like their reaction will make it seem like they got shot with a second one, but they didn't. Like, it's kind of like if you stub your toe, like not to pick on them, but I have a family member who is like very always blaming someone else in the world for his problems, and um, he's the type of person, if he stubs his toe, he's like, ah, fuck, and like really boiling up and making it a lot worse than it was.
I feel like it can also be like the anxiety about the anxiety.
Yeah. I mean, I was pretty anxious as a child too, and like kind of developed that into like my late teens and early adulthood. It's tough, yeah. Uh, Now I think about it differently. Just in my experience, like I think about it more like I don't even like to like describe myself as feeling anxious anymore because it's like a self-fulfilling. It's like a loaded term. Because I think of like like decades ago, it was like, oh, if you were nervous about something, you had butterflies in your stomach, But now it might be like I'm feeling anxious about this, And it's
But it's all like natural, it's anticipation of something
Totally.
that you don't know. If you reframe it that way, then it's not anxiety, it's just like normal. But it's really hard when you're anxious to think about it that way, when you're in the thick of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, we have this human body with all these reactions and processes that like most of them we have no control over. And they're happening before we even notice it, and it's just natural to feel like that, like the adrenaline or
Yeah. Physiological.
Yeah. I forget where I was going with some of that.
It feels like in a sense, like this is a message that's kind of everywhere, but I didn't take it like, it just really makes me think of the Wizard of Oz. Like, oh, you had the power the whole time, right? She always could have gone out, right? Which is like the oldest, one of the oldest stories from my childhood. So that was always a message, but applying it to this is just like seeing it in a new light.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, in this type of Buddhism, like there's a lot of practice, like having devotion to like one's teacher, guru, but ultimately the practice is realizing that like you have your own inner guru, they just help you get there. And yeah, maybe another little story I'll tell, which I don't know if I've told this one before, but actually this is the story of how I found like Joseph, the guy who usually leads this session, and his other meditation group. Yeah, I had been practicing different types of meditation and with different spiritual groups and circles for a while, like over, I don't know, 10 years, 10, 15 years. And one thing is that along the way, like I was mostly practicing with like different Zen groups and Theravada teachers. And whether it was them or like in reading books from like the really popular folks in those traditions, you always heard stories about them like going to Tibet or Nepal to practice with Tibetans, and you don't really hear the opposite happening. Like they maintained the tradition and like the old way pretty well because they were isolated up until the last 2nd century. So that kind of sparked my interest. But also I came across an article that quoted Toko Urgent Rinpoche, who's Joseph's like root teacher. And basically it said that like there's no difference between like the mind of a Buddha and like that of any other person. It's just like the Buddhas realize their, inner nature, and someone who isn't at that level just hasn't done it yet. And when I read that, I was like, it was like a light bulb on top of my head. And I've kind of seen the world differently since then. And then I like searched for that particular type of. I may have even searched his name online, and it was on Joe's website. And it took me a while to like muster up the courage to reach out, and then COVID happened and everything. But yeah, that was like over 7 years ago. But I really like that too because it's like it makes it accessible and like easy, natural in a way.
So is meditation supposed to help us understand that the pleasure is within us? How is that? Yeah, like trying to tie that together in my head.
Well,
it's an experience, just an experience.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the goal. So the goal, so it's still something that bliss is still something that's being presented in front of the clear blue sky. Whether you attach to it and say, "Oh, I want that again," I want that again, or if you can just let it come and let it go.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Embrace the impermanence of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, both of you. Any other thoughts or questions or requests or anything? We can, in a little bit here, start to work towards the gong portion. Well, how about we let's clear the still breath one more time and sit and meditate a little bit, and um, on the out breath, mind open like the sky, and then let's try to remember that later on during the gong portion, that spaciousness, and see if the sound can help us drop, or be that. Okay, so here we go. Okay. So yes, everyone grab whatever you'd like to get comfortable. Dim the lights. You have to use the bathroom real quick. Go for it. Okay. Sure. And yeah, if you're laying there and you feel like, oh, I wish I had another blanket or anything, arm. That'd be handy. Playing the gong.
I shouldn't complete your sentences.
Yeah. But yeah, if you feel like you need something, please feel free to get up. If you want to change your positioning or anything, it's not don't worry about disturbing anyone else or making noise. And then, do whatever feels good. If taking a nice deep breath in, a deep exhalation will help settle, go for that. And then something I like to do, because I love the beach, is I like to think that, kind of envision that I'm laying down on a nice warm sandy beach, and that usually instantly helps me kind of soften. But if you have any other favorite places, go for that, like nice, super comfy bed or hammock. Just settle in, nice and soft. Remember, mind open like the sky. Any thoughts come when you recognize you're thinking, just effortlessly let them go. Try not to grab onto them and continue the thinking. Now maintain spaciousness as you wiggle your fingers and toes. You can move your limbs. Do any stretches that you'd like to do, if that sounds good. And no rush, but at your own pace, you can turn to one side and push up slowly.
All hail the Gong Master. Wow.
Glad you like it. So yeah, we always bring a close to the session with a dedication of merit. So I'll pass this around, and if you need the prayer, there's little printouts of it in there. You can pass it along. You're welcome to keep a copy if you'd like, or put it back in the envelope when we're done. So yeah, just a quick recap. So we start off by having a sense of appreciation and joy. We made it here. We get to do this practice. And that we're doing it not just for ourselves, but for all other beings. And then body like a mountain, speech like the ocean with no waves, mind open like the sky. And then our little talk about how we all have in our inherent Buddha nature or awakened nature within us. We just have to recognize it. And then with the dedication and merit, and to the folks following online, if you don't know the prayer, you could just think, may any and all goodness that's come from practicing in this session be shared with all beings everywhere. So we'll just sit and meditate for another few moments, and we'll say the dedication together. Okay. By this merit, may all attain omniscience, having defeated the enemy, wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. Well, thanks everyone for coming. Good to see you all.
Thank you.
Hope you all have a great night. Same to the folks online. Night.